All right, we're here at the Mack Center, Hofstra University with Rafael Palmiero, and he is, to me, a Hall of Famer. Raf, what was it like hitting over 500 home runs, 3,000 hits, batting .280 in your career?
Well, I never thought that I would get to those numbers. You know, when I first started, I just wanted to have a career and to play for as long as I could and maybe hopefully play on some good teams where we can, win some championships. I did play on some good teams that were close, but never got to get a World Series ring. But getting to those numbers is just a matter of staying healthy, being lucky, I guess, being somewhat good for a long time.
Somewhat?
And I did some good things for a long time. And when you play that long, you have a chance to accumulate some numbers like that.
You've been to 4 All-Star games, had 4 Silver Sluggers, all the different awards that you've won. What has stuck out the longest and the most?
Well, I think the 500 home runs and the 3,000 hits, the thing that people remember, because when I come to a show like this, when I sign my name, everybody wants me to put 569 home runs and 3,020 hits next to my name. But I was the Player of the Year one year. In 1999, I was the Sporting News Major League Player of the Year, which was voted on by the players. Which means a lot to me because I didn't win the MVP that year, but at least the players gave me that honor. And so that sticks out. But overall, I can't complain. I love my career. I think I did some good things, and I'm happy with it.
A lot of people don't realize that in 1982, you were drafted by the Mets in the 8th round. Tell us a little bit about that time, and what was it like being drafted by a New York team?
I kind of thought that I was going to get drafted. I didn't know how early or how late. I did get drafted by the Mets. It was in 82. That was Dwight Gooden's year. He was the first pick of the Mets. I had faced Dwight because we were both from Florida. I was from the Miami area. He was from the Tampa area. I got a chance to face him in a game, in an All-Star game in 82. And then that summer, he got drafted by the Mets, same draft. And then a couple years later, he was in New York pitching for the Mets, and I was in Mississippi playing in college for Mississippi State. But we ended up playing against each other again in 86. The night that the Mets clinched the division, they clinched it against us here at Shea. And I remember that night I hit a home run against him, which is one of the highlights of my career early on.
Best pitcher you ever faced against, and best player you've ever seen in person?
Played against a lot of great pitchers. Dwight, Clemens, Pedro, Randy Johnson, Nolan Ryan. I think Johnson was probably the guy that gave me the hardest time. I don't know that he was the best. He was one of the best. Greg Maddux, I played with in Chicago, played against when he was with the Braves, 360 wins. So there's a lot of great guys, but I think Johnson was the guy that gave me the hardest time. And as far as the best player that I ever played with or against, A-Rod, I played with in Texas. We won back-to-back MVPs down there. And then Barry Bonds. I think Barry Bonds was the best player of our time. Ken Griffey Jr. also. These are awesome players. But, what Barry did, in his career is unbelievable. He was probably, in my opinion, if not the best player, one of the best, 2 or 3.
One more question for me. All the stuff that you're hearing about Ohtani, the sports betting situation that's going on in sports, and the MLB has investigated it in 2 weeks, and they say they had no part of it. What are your thoughts with sports betting? Do you think it's going to help sports or it's going to hurt sports moving forward?
I really haven't given it a lot of thought, but I know that when I was playing, the sports betting thing was like, you couldn't touch it. When you first walk into a clubhouse, there's a sign about this size that says, no betting on baseball. So, I don't know. I think that gambling is a disease. It's not good. And there's a lot of young people that are getting hooked on gambling and on sports. And it's almost to the point now where they're not even rooting for teams. They're just rooting for players and outcomes. And so I don't know if it's a good thing. I think it's a huge industry, obviously, because it's now all over the place. I just hope that the athletes stay away from it. That's just not a good thing. It's not a good look. And I don't think Ohtani had anything to do with it. I haven't really followed it that well. But it's just hard to believe that his interpreter had that big of a problem with gambling. To be able to be in debt that much, it's just out of control. I'm just hoping and praying, and I don't think that Ohtani had anything to do with it. I think he's clean. I think he's a stand-up guy. I've never met him. My youngest son, Preston, played with the Angels last year. He was in AAA, but he had a chance to be with the big league club in spring training. He got a chance to play with Ohtani, actually met Ohtani in person, and he thinks that Ohtani is a stand-up guy. He's clean. He didn't think that Ohtani had anything to do with that, and I'm hoping and praying that that's the case.
I've got 3 first basemen over you as the greatest defensive and power hitters. Keith Hernandez, should he be in the Hall of Fame?
Keith was as good as there was. Defensively, he was the best. Okay, he and Mattingly are probably the best 2 defensive.
That was my other one.
Yeah, Mattingly was legit. I mean, Mattingly was playing third base sometimes. But, I mean, I played against Keith in the beginning of my career when he was with the Mets. And the stuff that he did in here and with St. Louis, the way he played first base was not the typical first baseman. He played it like a middle infielder, and he was covering, that whole side. So he took to another level. Because typically, the guy that you put at first base is usually the guy that's not athletic. Maybe he's not a good defender. Maybe it's an outfielder that comes to first base. But these guys were like legitimate defenders. They were on a different level. So those two guys, they're legit.
I'm not going to give you the other guy because the other guy I still think you're better than. I'm not going to mention him.
I'll see. Maybe I'll agree with you.
Okay. Do you want me to give it to you? Because you're probably not going to. Mark Teixeira. He's a guy that I really
Marco's
like.
good. Marco's legit. Arguably, he was better than me. I got 3 Gold Gloves. I don't know how many. He got like 5, maybe.
5 or 6,
So technically, he was better. I did my thing. I don't think I was like a great defender, but I made all the plays.
You were a good defender. Stop lying to yourself. You're a Hall of Famer in my eyes. I don't understand the MLB. They could say whatever they want. Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer. You're a Hall of Famer. Mark McGwire is a Hall of Famer. Sammy Sosa is a Hall of Famer. I'm tired of Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds. All of you guys are Hall of Famers. And Bud Selig is just a complete moron. That's just me. Anyways.
I can't say that about him.
I know
Obviously,
you can. But I can.
I don't even know that it's him. It's the voters, actually, who decide, the sports writers. And so it's in their hands. And I don't know that I completely agree with that, but that's just the way the system has worked for however many years. But I agree with you on all the players that you mentioned because those guys were the best in the game. Mm-hmm. And it is a shame that some of those guys are not in. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens were probably the best 2 players in the era that I played in. 7 MVPs, 7 Cy Youngs. You can't beat that.
I agree with you, but I really appreciate the time. Great interview, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Appreciate that.